In the early 20th century, America promised freedom and justice for all. But in the spring of 1920, two immigrant men were arrested. And what followed would become one of the most controversial trials in American history. April 15, 1920. South Braintree, Massachusetts, a quiet industrial town. It was just after 3 p.m. when two employees of the Slater and Morrill Shoe Company, Frederick Parmenter, the paymaster, and Alessandro Berardelli, the security guard, were ambushed on their way to deliver payroll. Eyewitnesses said two armed men emerged suddenly, shooting both men in broad daylight. Berardelli was shot 4 times, and Parmenter tried to flee but was also gunned down. The assailants grabbed a metal box carrying over $15,700 in payroll, equivalent to more than $250,000 today, and fled in a dark getaway car with 2 other accomplices inside. There were many witnesses, but their descriptions were vague. Short men, olive-skinned, speaking a foreign language, maybe Italian. It was brutal, it was fast, and it triggered one of the largest manhunts in Massachusetts history. May 5, 1920. Weeks later, police arrested Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti in Brockton, Massachusetts. They were both Italian immigrants, and more importantly to police, known anarchists, political radicals opposed to capitalism and government control. Sacco was a skilled shoemaker, a quiet family man. Vanzetti, a fish peddler, intelligent and philosophical. Police claimed they were acting suspiciously. Both were carrying loaded firearms. Neither had a strong explanation for where they had been on the day of the robbery. They lied about their anarchist affiliations during questioning, out of fear. To law enforcement, it was enough. Not because there was direct evidence, but because they were the perfect suspects. Foreign, anti-government, and hard to understand. The investigation, building the case. Police focused on matching bullets from the crime scene to Sacco's pistol. Investigators claimed that bullet 3, the fatal shot that killed Berardelli, matched Sacco's .32 caliber Colt automatic. But the firearms expert testimony was highly contested. Several independent experts stated the bullet had no conclusive match to Sacco's gun. Chain of custody was unclear. Bullets had likely been mixed or tampered with in police possession. Furthermore, no fingerprints from Sacco or Vanzetti were found at the scene. No eyewitnesses could positively identify either man. Vanzetti's gun didn't match any bullets fired. Both men had solid alibis. Sacco was at the Italian consulate in Boston. Vanzetti was selling fish in Plymouth, with multiple witnesses confirming. Police dismissed these accounts, focusing instead on political motive. These were anarchists. Of course they could kill, but was motive enough? The trial. July 1921. The trial began in Dedham, Massachusetts, under Judge Webster Thayer. From the beginning, the courtroom was filled with tension. Judge Thayer himself was known for his anti-radical, anti-immigrant views. He once privately said, "Did you see what I did to those anarchist bastards?" Throughout the trial, prejudice hung in the air. Reporters noted how Thayer often ridiculed the defense, while treating the prosecution with favor. The evidence presented was largely circumstantial. The guns, the political beliefs, behavior during arrest. But the prosecution could not prove that Sacco and Vanzetti were even in South Braintree that day. Defense attorney Fred Moore argued, no direct witness saw them. No physical evidence placed them at the crime scene. The men were targeted for their beliefs, not for actual guilt. But the jury, made up entirely of native-born Americans, found them guilty after just a few hours of deliberation. The global protest. As word spread, protests erupted worldwide. Writers, intellectuals, and ordinary people believed Sacco and Vanzetti were scapegoats, victims of a corrupt system. Demonstrations broke out in New York, London, Buenos Aires, Paris, Tokyo. Famous figures like Albert Einstein, H.G. Wells, George Bernard Shaw, Dorothy Parker, and even the Pope all called for a new trial, but the courts refused. Appeals and confession. Over the next 6 years, Sacco and Vanzetti's legal team filed appeal after appeal, but every motion was denied. Judge Thayer refused to recuse himself for reviewing his own rulings. Then, in 1925, something extraordinary happened. A convicted criminal named Celestino Medeiros, awaiting execution for another crime, confessed to the South Braintree murders. He said, "I was part of the gang that killed the guards." Sacco and Vanzetti weren't there, but the courts ignored the confession, calling it not credible, even as new evidence mounted, including expert critiques of the ballistics report. The legal system refused to budge. August 23, 1927. After 7 years of protests, 8 separate appeals, and global outrage. On the night of August 23, 1927, both men were executed in the electric chair at Charlestown State Prison. Vanzetti, calm and composed, said, "I am suffering because I am a radical. I'm sure of being right. I would not change my place with any man alive." Sacco cried out, "Long live anarchy!" Outside the prison, over 25,000 people gathered in silence. Riots and bombings followed in several American cities. The system had spoken, but the world was still asking, were they guilty or just convenient targets? Acknowledgement of injustice. In 1977, 50 years later, Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis issued an official statement. Any stigma and disgrace should be forever removed from the names of Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti. No one can say with certainty that they were guilty. It wasn't a legal pardon, but it was a moral admission that the trial had been tainted by bias, prejudice, and political fear. The Sacco and Vanzetti case stands as a chilling reminder that justice is not always blind, that fear can override truth, and that sometimes history must speak for those the courts have silenced. They were 2 immigrants, 2 radicals, but perhaps they were never killers.